Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and today I'm reviewing Wild Space from Pandasaurus Games. And Wild Space is a space exploring game where you'll ultimately be taking 10 turns with your spaceships to try to wander around, playing the best possible crew that you can in order to score as many points as possible. Effectively, 10 turns, play cards, score as many points based on a variety of scoring criteria that we'll get to, well, later in this review. But the basic idea is you take a spaceship and you either are going to land on a new planet or explore that planet. So for example, you can go ahead and take this blue can take the spaceship, they can land over here, and then they can go ahead and explore upwards on a subsequent turn to take the action of the planet. The landing zones of the various planets are going to be a little different every single time, so the landing zones do have different restrictions around them as far as what the requirement will be to go to that planet. You have to discard a card or something like that, or alternatively to potentially have certain cards in play, different things on the various planets. But then when you explore the planet, you'll always have the same common abilities. You'll have the option of drawing 3 cards or the option of playing a single card. So the basic gameplay loop is trying to land or explore in order to play or draw cards. That's the entire game of Wild Space. But past that, though, the way the cards you're going to be drawing from, you're going to be drawing cards from this card row over here, and or from the top of the deck as you go through it. And then playing cards is a host of cascading combos in this game. You see, let's say we go ahead, we go to play a card for the game, and we grab this card over here. Let's grab this card over here. We're going to draw this card, and we're going to play that to our little order over here. So we play the card. This card has an effect on it that says you have to discard another card to play another card. So we just play this card, but if we want, we can go ahead and discard a card. We'll discard this card to the discard pile in order to play another card, which we'll definitely do because playing cards is good. Those are going to be where you get your points from. From there, we'll go ahead and play this card. Now this card says if we have an engineer, this guy over here, then we can go ahead and play another card. Well, that seems like a good thing. It's actually a mechanic, I think. But we're going to ahead, if you have a mechanic, then we can play another card specifically of that type, a robot or one of these over here. So we'll go ahead and play a robot. This robot has a veteran symbol, which means we can also move our veteran marker over here, which means we'll go ahead and draw a card, and we'll select this one, and then replace it with a new card. So you can see how a single action in Wild Space can easily trigger a combo of cards that works well, that can be incredibly satisfying. Now, to be fair, I did set up that combo in my hand specifically. That said, I have played this game and had combos where you play 6 cards in a single turn, and when that does happen, without you intentionally setting it up for the sake of showing, it is an incredibly satisfying moment in the game. You're going to keep doing that for 10 full turns. You're going to be, every single turn, you either land a spaceship on a planet or advance your spaceship. Some of these other planets over here, the 2 starting planets are always in play. These planets, 3, 6, and 9, will unlock as players have enough crew. So this planet over here, now that I have 6 crew in play, will flip, although currently I'll be the only player who can actually go there. Now other players can see what's there, but I'm still the only one who can go there until they have 6 crew, and then this one will unlock at 9, giving you 5 total planets to explore. There are some more in the box. The starting planets are the same. The other planets are a little variable. There's some different ones in the box. But you're going to go ahead and play a spaceship, move to a planet, draw cards and or play cards, and then you're going to score, which brings us to scoring. How does scoring work? Well, you have these cards over here that are going to give you specific scoring objectives or criteria. This one will give you 4 points for every 3 robots. We already have 2, so we should try to get some more robots to score for that. You'll also score points for going deep into the type of animal. Animals come in both classes and species. The species of an animal, whether it's an owl, a rhino, all these aliens are basically mimicking Earth species. You have monkeys or whatever it is, lizards. But as you try to play different species, you'll go ahead and get points for every 3rd and subsequent card. So for example, if you have 5 of a certain type, you'll be scoring 5 points per card on cards 3, 4, and 5. The first 2 cards you don't score for, every subsequent card is worth 5 points. And then you're also going to score 15 points for having a full set of cards. And that is basically Wild Space. You can have a few other small things. You can be scoring points as you move your veteran marker on your captain. Few small details like that, but that is basically the core of Wild Space. Take a turn, play a card, trigger combos, rinse and repeat, and see who has the higher score at the end of the game. As far as the review, so starting off with ease of play. The rules are incredibly simple for Wild Space. It's a very short rulebook, very easy to dive into, not a lot as far as the complexity of the game, very easy to understand and play, and the teach is equally simple. You go through a simple turn structure with other players, show them what to do. It is a very easy game to learn and teach. The playtime is great, coming in consistently in the 20 to 35 minute range. It is a fast-paced, fast-moving game. The first game might take a little time as you try to figure out exactly how those combos start working and you field a few questions, but if all players have played the game, this is a game you can knock out in 20-25 minutes fairly easily, especially at smaller player counts. As far as table space, not a lot of table space either, so all around the board hits a lot of those ease of play factors. Wild Space is an easy game to play, dive into, all of that. As far as player count, this is a 1 to 4 player game. I've played it at 3 and 4 players. I have not played this at I have not played it as a solo game, so I can't comment on that. I will say 3 and 4 both worked really well. I can see 2 players working well as well, specifically because there's not a lot of interaction in the game. What other players do doesn't matter that much, except for going for the cards in the card row. So this is a game that I imagine will work just as well at 2. For 3 and 4, it worked great. 3 might be arguably a bit better because it moves a bit faster, but we're talking about the difference of a few minutes to a game, so both of those player counts work really well for me. I can see this working well at higher player counts too, because of how fast moving the game is. That said, the core game only gives you 1 to 4 players, so I can only play it at the highest count of 4 players. The solo mode gives you a different way to explore some things. I have not dove into that at all, so I can't comment on the solo mode for the game. Like I said already, though, interaction is basically not existent. So that if you want interaction in the game, this is mostly multiplayer solitaire, a bit of competition. That's our Alexa interrupting this review. A bit of interaction as you try to go through the card markets over here, but not a lot going on there. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, the combos in Wild Space are incredibly satisfying. There's a lot of, like I said already in the beginning, when you have a turn, when you play 5 cards at once, and it will happen multiple times in a game that you get to do so. This is a game where you can end with like 30 cards by the time you're done, maybe less than 30, but like 20 plus cards by the time you're done the game. So you'll have a few turns of building up cards and trying to set up those combos, because a big part of the game is setting up those combos. You're going to try to take drawing actions as much as possible to get the right cards in your hand to try to figure out what you need, and then when it's ready, when it's time to go for it, you play a card, you trigger a string of stuff, and you have a whole bunch of things happening, and suddenly not only have you built up your own thing, but you have potentially messed a little bit with other players' scoring options as well. Some of those cards, some of these, I don't think there's any on the table here, but this one over here, if you have the most of that symbol, you score 5 points. So through playing a whole bunch of cards at once, you can also have a little bit of messing with other players' scoring. Not a huge part of the game, but can be a factor as well. It's just incredibly satisfying to trigger a bunch of cards at once in Wild Space. And there's lots of ways to pursue and score for a victory. There's a lot of different options in terms of trying to go for scoring objectives, trying to go heavily into a few animal types. If you have 2 or 3 animals that you strongly focus on and get a bunch of cards for those animals, you will score a lot of points. But you also can't always guarantee that you get the right animals. Sometimes the cards in your hand that work for your combos don't always work for your animals, so sometimes going wide can be satisfying as well. Having all 6 animal types in the game can score you 15 points, and getting a few sets of those can score you chunks of points that way. So there's a whole bunch of different pathways and options you can pursue as far as how you get those points in the game, from advancing your veterans marker, from the different types of abilities or cards you get. Lots of stuff to be mindful of there. The game is incredibly satisfying for the playtime. Like I said already, this is a game that you can knock out in 25 minutes, and the amount of game it gives you in 25 minutes is really incredibly satisfying. It is a simple yet rewarding experience. As far as what I don't like about Wild Space, the biggest complaint I have, both of them are a little bit the same, 2 different complaints, kind of the same note, so to speak. The first is the bases for the game. The planets, not the bases. The planets that you have in Wild Space. They just feel boring. I'm not going to hold back on this one. The bases just feel completely underwhelming, especially because they give you variety, but the variety just feels meaningless. Basically all abilities and bases, and this is where it kind of ties into the complaints around the abilities as well. It's a lack of interesting abilities and a lack of interesting bases. But basically the game gives you 2 core actions: draw cards and play cards. Everything else is just a variation of that. If you have this card type, play that card. Discard this card to play that card. Do this to draw that card. Draw 3 cards, draw 2 cards, draw 1 card, draw 1 card, play 1 card. The entire game comes down to drawing and playing cards, which for your hand itself, I think it works a little bit more. For your hand, in terms of this getting those cards down, I think the core loop of the game works well for being able to cascade 5, 6 cards at once and feel satisfying. But the bases are just completely underwhelming for me. The bases are just boring. The supposed variety that they have doesn't feel meaningfully different. It just feels like, okay, great, here's another, card to discard or criteria to have to draw and or play cards. When you reveal that last base and you're like, oh my gosh, in this base we can go ahead and if we have these 2, we can play that type of card. It doesn't feel different. It doesn't feel like you explored anything or you got anything done. It just feels like you turned over another planet. I wish the bases, and again, abilities in general, but more so the bases, the planets, I wish the planets felt more meaningfully different in Wild Space, that they gave me more of a reason to actually care what planets are in play. I don't know exactly what abilities they could have or would have or what combos they have. Maybe they make it more interesting in terms of if you have these 6 of whatever, or if you have 5 rhinos, you get to play 2 cards. Give me a reason to actually care about the planets in the game. I'm sorry for harping so much on this, but I really like the core gameplay of Wild Space, and the planets were so underwhelming for me. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, the static crew row over here, can be a bit frustrating. Effectively, the game has a system where you draw cards either from the top of the deck or from the crew row. But additionally, you could, if you want, discard a card to clear the row. Now, what ends up happening in our games is that eventually the row gets a little cluttered, and people just don't want the cards in that row, which results in a bunch of players just top decking, hoping for the best, which isn't the worst because some things require you to discard cards, so getting 1 or 2 bad draws isn't a problem. You can use them as currency for other card abilities. But then eventually one player just bites the bullet, discards a card, clears the row, and suddenly the market has freed up again. But it can be a little frustrating to kind of be waiting for someone else to fall on their sword to clear that market row. I wish there was a different, I don't even have a good idea exactly, maybe abilities on bases. I don't know exactly how to solve that, but I don't like the one player falling on their sword to actually get the row cleared over there. And then along those lines, the luck of top decking. Very often in the game, you're going to be top decking, going to be drawing a card, and the cards that I play, the cards that I get that work well for my strategy. And it's not just top decking. It's even just the cards that come out. The fact that I might be going for specific criteria, for specific things, whether they're symbols, whether they're the classes of the various characters, or whether they're specific species of the characters. But I might just find myself getting the things I need where you don't. I don't think it matters significantly in a game that's this short and this accessible, but it's worth noting as far as just you could get a lot of luck mixed into this experience. As far as final thoughts on Wild Space surprised me. This was not on my radar at all. It's a game that I saw the playtime, I saw the box, I grabbed the rules, dove into it, and it really was very satisfying. The gameplay is simple yet engaging. The key word that pulled me in is combo-tastic. I don't know if that's the word, but something to do with combos. That's the key word that pulled me in. And it absolutely delivered on that concept. Just the idea of having triggers of cards playing one after another in a way that's incredibly engaging while being a very simple system. I just wish the planets were a little bit more interesting, or not more interesting. I wish the planets were straight up interesting, and I wish there were a little bit more as far as abilities to make this game a drop more complicated. For where it is right now, Wild Space is a 3.5 out of 5 for me. Really enjoy it, while also wanting just a drop more from how nuanced or intriguing the game system could be. As far as other game recommendations, if you like this and you're looking for something a little bit more up that will give you that more intricacy to the cascading, doing more every single turn, Wingspan's a great choice from Stonemaier Games. And then if you just like the card comboing and gathering sets of cards and finding interesting and different nuanced ways to score a game, Red Rising, also from Stonemaier Games. I just realized those are both from Stonemaier Games. That was not planned, but both those from Stonemaier Games are great choices that you can take a look at. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, have a good one.